Hello, everyone. Welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy. We are about All Souls podcast. I'm joined by Red Powell.
What up?
Adam Camilleri.
Oh, g'day.
And Tanya Gates.
Hey, everybody.
I'm pointing around where everyone is, but I don't know if it actually saves off on the video where everyone actually is. But anyway, welcome, everyone. Welcome to everyone that's listening. Really appreciate that. Got some cool things. We want to talk about some of the Hellsmiths of Hashut today. That is up for pre-order. By the time you're hearing this on the Games Workshop site, or check out some of the sponsors, go to the folks that they can get the models. You're going to want these. These are awesome. I'm going to show this off. I did a little bit of building and a little bit of painting. This
Looks
is
fantastic.
the Dominator engine.
It's very cool.
Very cool.
Thank you. I went with the whole deal with these the Hellsmiths is that they have like demonic energy and they harness that and do cool stuff. This is a throwback, a bit of an homage to some things that existed in time in memoriam that have been
the world that was, yeah. And I mean, there is a lot to love about that old and new, because they've actually kept a lot of the new. I've been reading a little bit of the fluff, and the fact that Hashut is still playing such a huge part in their identity and their role, and now that he's been wrapped into the actual pantheon of Age of Sigmar as well, I think it's really cool.
No doubt. And these models, I know the instantly captured feats threw them right back. They got some of those design elements of the Chaos Dwarves, but yet still brand new lore, brand new models, a whole new range.
Say whatever you want, baby, but essentially they've almost one for one to the old range with counterparts. Like you have the Bull Centaurs,
right?
And new stuff indeed, because they didn't have the big lad you just held up previously, or they had like the Kadai Destroyer or whatever, but that was a much bigger beastie. And they still got the Bull Taurus and the Bale Taurus and stuff like that. I'm waiting to see if there's a Lamassu. I haven't found that there's a Lamassu in there yet.
It's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
There's big things for sure. That aesthetic is there, and I kind of want to focus on the Spearhead element. So in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the Helsmiths, Spearhead in general, and then on the back out the show, we're going to be talking about some hobby texture techniques and talk a little philosophically about when to use texture or not to use texture in your models or while you're painting your models. And I think it's a fun topic. I actually, this kind of thing comes up, from time to time, and want to talk about that. But Spearhead is one mode of play for Age of Sigmar, to where you actually get to play with all the rules plus some cool mechanics on a smaller board with just a box of models. Games Workshop was very kind enough to send us this box to review. I have taken a look at it. The models are absolutely awesome. As you see, I built some, and then really happy with the fact that you could just take this set of models, get right on the tabletop with it if you've already got the Spearhead set.
I think it's awesome, and it's a great box as well. A little bit of everything in there, and some of the spicy characters as well, which I think is a spectacular box. And Spearhead, dude. I mean, I'm what, 40 games in on Spearhead, having to totally crunch games at one of the Games Workshop events to get ready to stream some of it. But dude, Spearhead has been some of the most fun that I've had in the Age of Sigmar realm in a long time. It's spectacular. I love it so much. The fact that they can make so few models feel so diverse and feel like you have so much to do on such a small board, I think it's been such a testament to the rules writers and the design choices.
I haven't actually played Spearhead before, but how do the different factions play into each other? Like, is it a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing, or are they kind of balanced towards everybody else? Like, how does that work?
So you're playing on a smaller board, and the board has printed objectives on there. Each one of those objectives has, it's themed. It has a name. It's got a symbol, a special symbol on there, and it has a little bit of terrain on the table. The terrain sometimes gives effects. Sometimes you can take effect. You can do some cool things with the terrain as your faction. But each one of the Spearhead boxes are balanced against every other force out there in a way that is incredibly thoughtful.
So yeah, there is So there is some rock paper scissors like element. Like I remember I was playing a huge amount of the practice games with the new Skaven box of the Skaven Tide box. So it was the Skaven versus the Stormcast Eternals, and I was playing as the Skaven and routinely losing whole units, but my units would come back and the Stormcast units would not. So if I managed to drown them on the right positions or hold them off points or roadblock them and stuff like that, yeah, sure, they're going to run through me like a hot knife through butter, but my stuff comes back and I can keep drowning them and trying to outscore them whilst trying to kill the right things in the right places. So definitely there's that rock, paper, scissors. Of course, you have some of the shooting arm as well, like Karajan Overlords and things of that ilk, where, you know, if you let them stand back and shoot you, you're going to have a bad time. But as soon as you get up nice and close, they start to fall apart. So there's still a good internal balance, I feel, to Spearhead. I'm not up to date with a couple of the newer ones that have come out in their rule sets, but where it was when I was practicing and playing it, I felt like it was very well balanced.
What tips breaks up some of that rock paper scissors mentality, or I guess feel on the tabletop, is every turn you draw a twist, and that twist can favor the underdog. It does, tells a little something about the game, and then you also have in your hand you have a hand of cards. And those cards either give you a command trait to use, or give you some missions, some orders of things of what to do on the tabletop to score some points. So you've got the objectives, you've got the mission rules, the army rules that you're playing with, and the cards, and the different factions, they play in a way that just like thematic, like you would expect them to do, like the rats coming back. Almost every army, unless you're one of those big tanky armies, has a unit that can recur on the tabletop. So that gives you, what that does, tells you, gives you some board presence somewhere else if you needed it to. Sometimes there's a bit of the gamble of, do you really want to eliminate that unit? Do you want to let them to hang out there? There's a lot of play over the 4 turns of the game.
Yeah, I identified early that like one of the best things I could do was not finish off units. Was like get them to like absolute minimum, like 2 or 3 models left, and just leave them be. And then it's my opponent's problem to try and get them killed, get their own models killed, so they can try and recur them. And I thought that was a fun little bit of interplay in and of itself.
So the Hellsmiths, no different there. Every one of the forces that you put on the table for Spearhead, you get a battle trait, something that comes with your army, and then you get a couple of choices you can pick. You can pick a regimental ability and then an enhancement. So that also gives you a little bit of play when you decide, or sorry, not when you decide, but when you're matched up against an opponent, you've got a little bit of things you can pick to see what's going to give you that advantage there. Battle trait here for this is the Harness Demonic Power. You must use this ability at the start of each of your hero phases. Remove all demonic power points from each friendly unit, then gain a number of demonic power points equal to the current battle round. Then allocate your demonic power points to friendly units. Each unit can have a maximum of 3 demonic power points. Then I'll unallocate. Then you lose the rest. So those are things that power up these the units in your army. And I do want to talk about the Decimator engine, if I can, in a minute. Oh, can you jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, you're running. Roll with it.
The Dominator engine. So you've got this one can be built in a couple different ways. The Dominator engine is in the Spearhead. I built him with the maces though, because I like the way that looks, and he does some cool things. And who doesn't like to charge forward and pound things away? The Dominator engine with Immolator cannons. Immolator cannons have a range of 8, attack 5, hit on 2+, wound on a 4+. That's when it look. If you're just, I know we're primarily a 40k show, but there's no strength versus toughness. You just have a ability. You know a lot about what your unit can do right on his data sheet. War scroll, rend 1 damage D3, and it can shoot into combat.
Nice.
The demonic strength, that's his passive ability here. Effect for each dominator with demonic power. Each demonic power point this unit has, add 1 inch to the move characteristic and add 1 to the attack characteristics of its weapons.
Ooh, so you can soup him up pretty high.
Soup him up pretty good, yeah. Digging this thing is one of the new models. Again, love the way this thing looks. It's got this radiating flame coming up from all over it. I went with this color scheme because I thought kind of different, right?
You're gonna hate me for this, Paul. But
yeah,
when I get one, I'm going to turn into an ogre tyrant. I'd already decided.
It's got the beat for it, right?
Good. He's got the pseudo gut plate as well on the front where you said the furnace was. I could easily make that into the gut plate.
This is modular too, so this comes with another bit that you could change that plate out for another symbol to add some variance to your army.
Love it.
There's actually another head too. This is just one of the head types. So I like the fact that you get some customization that you can do. But really been enjoying the Sigmar Spearhead variant of it. For several reasons, is that there is a lot of balance in between them. You can play a game in 40 minutes, especially if you kind of know what you're doing, get familiar with the rules, and then you get a full game experience out of it, which is not. You don't always get that with like a box game, but you could almost play it like a board game in that sense. Is that all you need are just two forces and then the cards and the board, and you're set to go.
And I do love how when I heard Spearhead was coming out, I assumed it was going to be Age of Sigmar Kill Team. That was my assumption. It was going to be Age of Sigmar Kill Team. It really isn't. It is just a smaller game of Age of Sigmar that's really well designed and plays on a much smaller board, much quicker, with vastly smaller forces. But it still holds tactical integrity, so to speak.
It really does.
And it is relevant. It is a relevant learning position to extend into Age of Sigmar, whereas Kill Team is essentially its own thing now, with its own whole microcosm, its whole design space.
It really is.
Which is super exciting as well.
You could equate in some way Kill Team to Warcry, with every model having, a large number of wounds, everyone's its own single activation. With Spearhead, it still very much is squad activation versus squad activation. In the same mechanics that you play Sigmar, but the only difference is some of these units, and not all of them, but some of the units have been modified to play in a Spearhead environment.
Yeah, and that's just to make their rules function more cleanly within the smaller sandbox.
Yeah, love it. And this whole demonic power thing, that's going to be a cool element. A little bit of management within the economy of the army itself.
It's just very interesting that in the design space of factions, Chaos Dwarves and now Hellsmiths, they're kind of the yin yang to Admech and Darkmech for where they harness the powers of the warp. They use those to, they shackle demons to make their engines, grind their bones to make their bread, so to speak. Similar antiquation to like Vashtor in 40k as well, where we have, because the warp is ever present in so many different game systems and the IP, it's interesting to see different factions come to the same conclusions with the resources given to them in the story. I always think that's cute when you have these ideologies that are multiple game spanning within the same. Yeah, you get where I'm going. I love it when they do that, and there's the correlations between them.
I like that too. That's a great spot too. It's like the similarities, but yet totally different flavor. But it still does that same idea of, if you like it over there, you might like it over here.
Correct. Exactly right. Yeah. I mean, I know so many people waiting for Darkmech in 40k. I'm like, go play some Hellsmiths. It's essentially it. It's right there, baby. It's at your fingertips.
Each one of these war scrolls has that way to kind of manipulate and use the demonic power points. The War Despot is he's a black-hearted conqueror.
Really?
I like it. Yeah, add 3 to the control scores of friendly units while they are wholly within 6 inches of this unit. Add 3 inches to the range of this ability for each demonic power point the unit has.
And here I was thinking, Care Bears. They're all about hugs.
He's kind of stout too. Got a 3+ save, 5 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, 1 rend. That's the AP over here with 2 damage apiece, and crits do mortal wounds.
That seems pretty good.
They move 4. Like everything here moves 4 inches except the Dominator engine can move 6.
So we're slow.
Yeah,
checks out.
I guess it's maybe, big hats. Is that as much of a detriment on the smaller board size, or do you think that it's not going to play that much of a role?
That's a great question. I was thinking that, something very similar is that the board size is smaller, but a lot of the units have abilities to teleport around the board or this recursion help. So I'll see if I can show it on the screen here. Is that this symbol right here signifies that unit can come back in your reserves phase, the reserve step, after it's been destroyed. And it could be put somewhere far away. So I do think that even though it's a smaller board, the idea of this stat, of that one particular stat being something you have to overcome and play around, is still going to be relevant. But they do have a Tormentor Bombard cannon that can fire 30 inches. So,
Is that the entire board?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I think it's more than the board.
Yes, speaking to my guard-loving heart.
This is the Basilisk equivalent of Spearhead.
Yeah.
But as the ability here, the Ruinous Bombardment. Roll a dice for each target. On a 3+, subtract 3 from the target's control score for the rest of the turn. Declare if this unit used a shoot ability this turn and all of its attacks targeted the same enemy unit. The enemy unit is the target, and then you can pick a number of enemy units within 6 inches of that target equal to the number of demonic power points that have been used as an additional target.
Wow.
Yeah, subtract 3 from the control score. That's so. In the clover of the stats for Age of Sigmar, you've got how much health the model has, the move that the model has, the save, and then the control stat, the OC type stuff. And so being able to affect that, from range while doing, a lot of damage, D3 damage with your attacks from a distance, it ain't bad. I think this army's going to have some play. I like it when the army can bring some type of unique effects, and you'll see that with some of these demonic power points, and be as anticipated as it is. There's been a lot of people waiting to play this army, either because they have the nostalgia from before, and this absolutely kicks on that. Absolutely kicks on that, or they just want something fresh, and this is fresh.
I'm getting some.
Yeah.
I'm all the way up to my eyeballs in the old world, and I really, really love Chaos Dwarves, and being keen as mustard. I did hear whispers that this may be a thing, actually some time ago, and ever since then I've been like, oh, please let this one be real. I'd love new Hellsmiths.
Well, this goes over pre-order. It's up probably by the time you're listening to this. And so if it is your jam, make sure you get over there and get that. Make sure you get the army set. The army set comes with the cards. It comes with these models. It comes with this book. It's awesome. And I feel like you get a lot of stuff in just this one set. And then, of course, you get to kind of get the jump start on what the rest of the army is going to be. But my read on the army, it seems like it's got that. It captures some of that. You've got some durability, you've got some toughness, you've got some cool ways to impact the board, and then you've got this whole mechanic of like funneling this demonic power through these engines and their very souls, and it seems pretty neat.
Damn right.
All right, well, let's check it out. We're going to take a quick break, come back, get a word from our sponsors, and then talk about that hobby stuff we're talking about, and a little bit of 40K as well. See you in a second.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. Thank you so much for joining us and also checking out our sponsors and hitting the like button and leaving a comment. We got some comments on Spotify, which is awesome. Got some comments on YouTube. Love hearing from y'all. Love hearing y'all's ideas about either 40K in general, things we talk about, or just joining in on the fun that we have here with the cast. It is always a pleasure. And we haven't done like a real hobby segment in a while, and I think last week we mentioned we're going to talk about textures, and I wanted to talk about how to do some textures sometimes, and what products and things to try, but also when is it fine to have textures, and then maybe when it might not be so fine to have textures, and the differences between those maybe situations.
Are you getting at riding the line between less is more on texture paint? Because I've overdone it on texture paint and texture in general numerous times.
So I guess let me also pump the brakes a second and also state that, look, paint to your own standard, do everything to your own standard, and whatever you want is cool. And this is not about a thing about what to do or what to be conscious of or whatever, unless you want to. And that's what this is, if you want to. So this is like use at your own risk if you want to type of segment. And I was more kind of thinking about like, on armor. Do you want brushstrokes to be seen on armor, and how to maybe minimize that? Those types of things.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment and say that because I'm seeing miniatures as more of an art form now, I think texture is great anytime that it's a conscious choice that you make. So if you're like, I just really feel like this particular part of the model needs to have brushstrokes or whatever, or maybe the entire model needs to have, some sort of texture on it. I think if that's your conscious decision that you're making, then it is the correct choice for you. I actually have a model. It's not a model, it's a bust. It's the first and only bust that I've ever painted. And I'll show it off for video. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'm sorry, but I painted this little guy, and he is just a bust that my friend Dano made for a video, and then he sent it to me. He's like, paint it if you want it. And so I really embraced texture on this guy because I can see all of Dano's little fingerprints on it, right? He sculpted it. And so I was like, I'm just going to lean into texture and go really heavy with the paint. And that was a conscious choice that I made. And I think in terms of artistic expression, that is the correct choice to make.
I love
so you're saying never have I ever accidentally put texture on something and been like,
oh,
it's
no,
working.
no.
It's
I
working.
absolutely I have absolutely accidentally put texture on stuff, but I fix it.
Exactly right. But you've never been like, you know what? I like that afterwards, is what you're saying. That's working for me. I'm going to use it. It's
no, I have done that as well, for sure. There's happy accidents. But there are different ways that you can achieve different textures too, right? So like Paul was saying with metallics, because the medium is transparent and the actual pigment is a little bit thicker, it leaves brush strokes really easy. So for me, I just always dry brush a model first over black primer, and it just does all the metallics all at once. And that is essentially a texture that you're putting on. And to me, it just looks like a nice, well lived in metallic.
Tanya, I got a question for you. With when you're talking about the textures and being intentional with it, are you including also creating more texture on the model, maybe potentially, scraping some scratches, and things like that, and into things?
Yeah. Yes, I wouldn't do that because I'm not great with my hands and tools, but something that my boss does on his models, and also something that I've started to do as well, is to use some of the basing textures that have the grit in it and place that on your model before you start painting in places where you want it to be rusty. Because then you get that kind of textured, rusted out, pitted kind of look. And then you can paint over top of it, and it just looks kind of like intentional texture.
I've seen some people do something, if I'm understanding it correctly, something similar with plastic glue too, kind of putting it on a place that you were not gluing anything to. You just want it to do its scientific work, and then you go in there.
That's cool.
I've seen that happen. I know there's some products out there too. That I think are maybe more purpose built for that.
Yeah, and I'm starting to experiment a little bit with heavier body acrylics. Originally it started off, I got them because I live in the desert and it's the summer, and wet blending and glazing with regular acrylics is difficult this time of year. So I was like, I'm going to get these heavier body acrylics and see what it's like. And it's great for wet blending, but it also kind of has a bit of a different texture to it. I'm painting this old Snickrot model right now, the old metal one, and it does create a texture that really does kind of look like skin when you paint it on metal. And I'm really enjoying playing with those as well. So even the paints that you use can create textures in different ways as well.
Well, some of them have. So I'm going to show off a model here. Again, sorry for the folks that are listening to this on the podcast, but this is one of my knights, and I went with this rusted up, beat out. It's like it is 10,000 years old. Is it loyalist? Is it heretic? You never know till the guns start firing, I guess. But in the cracks and crevices, going with like typhus corrosion, which that paint itself has some texture to it. And so when it bleeds out onto the rest of the model, it's got that just that like trace amount of grit that looks a little different than just Agrax shade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because shades cause shadows, yeah, whereas grit looks completely different. And it's a great thing to point out, because a lot of people say like, oh, I could just use Agrax to get the same thing. It's not quite the same, because it catches the light differently. It looks like there's something. It looks like there's mud and things pooling in crevices, rather than just looking like it's not in direct sunlight, which is essentially what you're creating with your shades and your undertones.
I don't want to say real talk. Sometimes Agrax is a little bit easier to work with, and I'll use that like in a certain area, and then continue on with the gritty stuff.
Yeah. I mean, what can you say about Agrax Earthshade? It's literally the fix all.
That point is like for the point where that maybe that look you're going for doesn't necessarily play as well as it would on a different section of the model. I think it's okay to put texture and change your technique in certain places in that same vein that Tanya was talking about being very deliberate and intentional with what you're trying to do.
I mean, it can be as simple as one of the things that I always do is whatever, because I use a lot of weathering powders on my bases as well. And I always make sure to get a little bit on the shoes. You got to get a little bit. How are they walking clean shoed through this desert? How? They're not.
Yep.
Get a little bit on the shoe. Get a little bit up there. And the same when I use ochre for rusting effects, it's never over a flat panel. It's very rare that you would ever see rust just on a flat piece of metal. It's usually it's around the edges. It's actually very interesting to walk around in life and see how texture influences or things age just out in the open. Like I was in Europe recently, and especially when I was in Berlin, there was lots of oxidized statues, like oxidized in particular, like in statues. And the way you'd see the different directions that they oxidized most from was actually really interesting. Maybe if I've got some pictures, I'll chuck them in the Discord. But it's actually almost fascinating to see the directional weathering, like on one side of a building versus the other side. Because I was on top of the cathedral, and they got the same statues on all four corners of the compass, and seeing how each one of them weathered a little differently was fascinating to me. Because one gets more sunlight and is hotter during summer, when the sun is rising in that point, or is at that zenith, during the hottest part of the day and stuff. And then other ones get more rain when it comes in from the south or wherever it comes from in Germany. But that kind of stuff is really quite fascinating. And you can take all that into account and more when deciding what you want to do on your minis.
I'm glad you brought up rust. Sorry, go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, I was just going to say that, like, you can kind of get creative too in playing with texture intentionally. Like, I don't know if you guys know who David Koska is. He is he's an artist by trade, and he has all these amazing converted armies, and he is really great at using the paints to create textures on the miniatures. So sometimes you can see brush strokes, but it's really intentional. It feels like an art piece, and it works with his like heavily converted armies. His Mechanicus army, I think, is like super iconic, and I mean, it's just such a unique paint style, and I love that you can see that little bit of the process in the actual finished piece as well. And he's really creative in that, like, sometimes he'll use like tufts to create hair on some different models and things like that. Cool, he's just incredible in that he thinks outside of the box with all of these things, and he's not afraid to kind of like go against the grain and like show the process, show the brush strokes. And I really admire that.
Some of the best paintings in the world you see the brush strokes on. So, that's just an example. So, but I think you're exactly right. The finished product, like the style, what you're going for, deliberate is probably the prevailing trait there. That I like that. But rust, going back to that comment, is that rust changes the texture of what it's rusting. And that is, if you play with that, like if you're using like one of the dry compounds, like Rizza Rust, and don't be afraid to kind of like have it build up a little bit, off that, not just use it as a dry brush or something. You can actually build on elements of it. And although I know we're talking about just texture in general, not necessarily weathering, I kind of feel like sometimes you can just go over the top and it's okay. Like, can you have too much weathering? I don't know.
You can. I'm going to say yes, you can. When it starts to feel less intentional and it starts to feel like you're trying to cover up things on the model.
We're not supposed to do that?
Maybe a little bit too much. Yeah.
I know players, especially during like the early days of 8th edition when battle ready became a necessity for playing the game, where weathering became the scheme. The paint scheme was weathering, because you could get a Necron model, rattle can it, typhus corrosion, and then slather it in the oxidized, what was the oxidized one called?
Nihilic oxide, is that what you're
Nihilic oxide, and then you'd be like, ta-da! Or to another extent, I knew another mate who would get the same Necrons. I don't know why it's Necrons, but spray it silver, chuck it in a box of like leaves and tufts and bits from his garden, roll it around a bit, ta-da! While the rattle can was still wet, so it was using the paint
10
to
points,
stick.
I guess.
Like, I don't need to buy glue.
The interesting thing about rust is that sometimes rust does appear to sort of be sitting on top of the object, whatever it is, but sometimes rust is like underneath the paint and starts to eat its way out. And my husband has a World Eaters army that's in that white and blue scheme, and he actually primes the model in like a warm reddish brown underneath, and then he sort of like wets the model once it's dry, like kind of sporadically, and puts salt on top of it.
Yeah,
I've heard the salt. Yeah,
and then he rattle cans it with the white, and then
knocks off the salt.
Yeah, you can take the salt off, and then so that actually makes it look like the rust is eating through the paint, and it looks phenomenal as well. So there's like so many different approaches to this texture that you can take. And I kind of like that the paint itself laying over top of the paint underneath kind of creates its own texture as well.
I think if you look for ways to incorporate different textures into your models, it's a good way to kind of like practice things. Like leather pouches is an example of this. Like you could, you got a bang up paint job, something you're really proud of, and that's absolutely awesome. Maybe you just and I was guilty of this for a long, long time. Okay, all my pouches are the same way. It's some color of brown with Agrax over it, and then we're done. And then move on. Maybe it gets the same edge highlight as the way I do the armor and everything else, and that's perfectly fine, completely and totally fine, because it's going to look good. You're going to get your battle ready points. You got a completed model. You've done the thing. But you could use that as a way to practice some different type of texture. Leather looks different than ceramite armor. Okay, I don't know what leather looks like 40,000 years from now, but leather might look different than ceramite armor.
Sorry to take us on a tangent. I believe I heard a Reddit thread, or there was a conversation piece that was started that where does the Imperium gets all its leather from? Because with just the amount of leather goods that are worn by the Astra Militarum, there's got to be whole freaking solar systems just dedicated to leather production for the Hammer of the Emperor. The
billions of planets.
Yeah, there would have to be hundreds of planets just to provide them enough leather.
It's not leather. It's like...
I know.
It's just plastic. It's not real leather. Guardsmen aren't worth having real leather.
It's just leather. Yeah,
that's right.
It's fake leather.
Look, if there aren't burgers in the 41st millennium, is it worth fighting for?
It's people. The leather is people, like everything else is. It's the cheapest commodity they have.
So that's my challenge to folks. Not for plastic leather, but to find excuses to work a little texture and look, like fur and stuff. Obviously that's a different thing. That's a different thing on models. There's sculpted texture, and then there's texture you can create. So my challenge is for folks to maybe look for an opportunity to mess with texture that you haven't done before.
And my little tip is if you do not want any texture on your model and you had a little whoopsie, Winsor & Newton matte varnish, the professional matte varnish, do a good coat of that. It'll take out like 60 to 80% of that texture. Nobody will ever know.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's our show this week. Some folks are traveling back to normal. Next week should be. I got some cool things to talk about. You don't want to miss it. Make sure that you have got the notifications on about when we do this kind of thing. Really appreciate everybody coming and hanging out with us. Please leave us those 5-star reviews. Leave some comments. It's great to hear from y'all. Let us know if you're working on anything. We got a request to talk about some glazes. So maybe in glazing as a topic. So it sounds like 10, you got some experience with that.
Yep.
Let's talk about that next week. We'll see y'all, everybody.
Bye, everybody.